Something I'd like to see more and more of is a focus on people and characters over discussing like media or trends or how people feel about things in general, because that kind of stuff is it's difficult for people to even put into words in the first place. The metrics can throw you off, the numbers can throw you off. Cultural impact is just a really hard thing to actually analyze because it's something that's happening to each individual person. Everybody is taking their own personal impact from a thing, and the only way to really study how that affects the world is after the results have been seen. After you see how people actually respond to the impact of something. But that requires you to study people. If you actually just focus in on an individual, you will always learn what was impactful through the fact that it impacted them. You will always, at the very least, be able to say, well, whether this thing was massively impactful on culture, whether or not it was good or bad, it definitely made this person change in this way. And so when you study a career, that's the most interesting way to study the history surrounding that career, is that you start seeing how it affected this person, how that person affected other people, and that chain of causality gives you a much better sense of what was actually going on than if you try to study the individual works, or if you try to study a time period without focusing on any individual in that time period. You have to follow them through their life and then follow someone else through their life. This is why I really like, for instance, in anime analysis, the approach that Steve M takes, where he'll zero in on a director, and in the course of telling their whole story, inevitably tells the stories of a bunch of other people who worked with them. And, he kind of branches off and talks about the next person who is a legend in the same field, and so inevitably these stories become interrelated because all of these people work together and they all know each other. So if you focus on the individuals, eventually you tell the story of the entire thing just by continually going down the list of who had the most connections, who did the most interactions, and then go down from there. Tezuka, obviously the most of all time.